Welcome to the channel, and let me present my thoughts on Storm above the Reich. Yes, notice that I said thoughts. Now, when you go to most channels, board game channels, and they're doing a playthrough, and they get to the last episode after they've played the game, it's called their final thoughts. And now for my final thoughts. Well, that implies that that's the end of this. You'll never see this game again. I'm never going to play it again, things like that. Now, that's fine, especially for content creators who just are really into the collection and, generating new content. So they'll sit there and they'll play the game. But then, it's on to the next thing. Yeah, fine. Totally fine with that.
Just consume product and then get excited for next products.
I'm coming up with a little different approach, and it's the main question is, what kind of longevity does this game have? Would I play it again? Would I play it on a video again? And so that's what I want to bring in with my thoughts here. So I'm going to break this up into two parts. Well, okay, yeah, two parts. The first, considering this game on its own, like as if nothing else existed apart from it. A game in and of itself, as it were. And then second, I will start talking about the other games of this series. And it's going to actually be part of where the bulk of my criticisms lay, something like that. But let's get into it. So a very, very brief overview for anyone who hasn't been watching the playthroughs. What is this game? This is a game of World War II aerial combat, where you are the Germans and you are in charge of a Staffel, or squadron, of Luftwaffe fighters. In particular, in this game, the Focke-Wulf 190s. And your mission is to shoot down as many B-24 Liberator bombers as you can. And these bombers, of course, are not defenseless. They fly around in these tight boxes, covering each other with their machine guns. And you have to find a way to penetrate. And what you're going to do is use directions like tail, nose, flanks, and set up your attacks. And you want to attack in nice, good swarms, and from different directions, like so. And you come in from here and here. And you'll fire upon these bombers, and you'll do that. Say if you're coming from the tail, you'll pull a tail card when you're shooting. And this is a little combat resolution table in a sense. And so you will do hits to the bomber, hopefully, or you will be hit by the bomber. And of course, a lot of other things can happen as well. That is it. You try to shoot down as many bombers as you can and survive to get back to base. Tally up the victory points and go on like that through the season. So, I really enjoy Storm Above the Reich. Those are my thoughts. Thanks for watching. No. Okay, seriously. What makes this game enjoyable? And I'll sum it up with the saying, no plan survives contact with the enemy. Now, there is a video put out by Disney back in 1940, whatever, and it was to train their pilots on how they approach these bombers. Now, of course, that obviously was for the Americans. Now, I'm sure the Germans had their own kind of training, and it was probably very much the similar principles about picking your angle of attack, your approach, and how you're going to break away, and all that. And what's enjoyable about this game, one thing, is that that's all recreated here. You're always making these kind of tricky decisions because, for instance, coming from the tail tends to be a high-risk, high-reward attack. Coming from the flanks, however, tends to be safer but less effective. And you'll find in the flanks often there'll be the sun up in the high. There's various levels, and this is a flat board, but you'll have like these little blue things when you're high relative to the bomber. You'll have those in here. But anyway, if you're coming out the flanks and you come out of the sun, that'll help you because it'll help prevent you being shot. And all these decisions, do I go up to the sun Do I attack from the sun? Do I come from the tail? Do I go from the nose? If I go through the nose, I risk, running into my own planes or the bombers, and decisions like that. And it's all recreated here. And like I said, the no plan survives contact with the enemy. And the plan, and it becomes very clear at the beginning, you want to stack up as many advantages as you can when you attack these bombers. And that happens with these attack advantages down here, which I haven't really talked about yet. But basically, there is an advantage position. This is if you attack from more than one altitude and from more than one direction. There's one when you double up the fighters in a space, and these allow you to avoid hits. And you definitely want to keep these because there's going to be a lot of fire flying around. And finally, when you attack with four fighters, all from the same direction, all from the same approach, you get the swarm advantage. And this will allow you to do automatic damage as opposed to being left to the mercy of the cards. So, the game trains you very well that every time you go and attack, you want to figure out a way to earn all three of these advantages and make your job a lot safer and a lot easier. But of course, that's the plan. Now, the problem is contact with the enemy. And the contact comes, obviously, first of all, they shoot back. And that can be quite deadly at times. But even worse, you have these guys, enemy fighters, who are escorting the bombers. And these guys can show up in all these boxes that you're attacking from and completely throw your plans out of whack. So by collecting all these advantages, what you are doing is mitigating the luck factor. That basically, if you have all three of these, you can eliminate getting some hits. If you can come out of the sun, you can eliminate hits, and you can guarantee some damage. But you're going to get disrupted. So there's going to be times, well, do I go ahead and proceed with my attack anyway, even though I'm not going to have every advantage? So yeah, there's a lot of luck elements to take account of. But, and that's what makes this an enjoyable game over, say, something else. The luck is never so much that you feel like you're not in control of your game. You're playing the game that you want to play. And the game doesn't play you. And sometimes I like to pick on cooperative games, which I do like those sometimes. Especially as like a social icebreaker. If you have a group you're not very familiar with, you might pull this out, and it's more cooperative. It's a little more non-confrontational. So I see the point of them. But over time, I got really tired of them because I always felt like the game was playing me. It's just slaps in the faces from the AI, and there's like only one choice you can really do in it. And I gotta think of it. The one that kind of broke my spirit was that the pandemic, the version that's like in the Netherlands with the tides, and you're trying to build dams and things like that. And I started playing that. I'm just like, and at one point I'm like, do I even have to be here for my turn? Can I like excuse myself to the bathroom? Someone else plays my turn, and will it make a difference? And when I'm evaluating games, I ask that question: is this game playing me or am I playing it? And a lot of times, games, I'll answer the question, no, it feels like it's playing me. So I tend to avoid those games, but not here. There's plenty of chaos. There's plenty of battles, but it's exciting. I forgot to mention, it's also a little bit of role play. You have named fighters here, and they all develop skills that further kind of mitigate against the luck. And so you have kind of that role-playing element in there, and it's like, oh man, and if you watch my playthrough, Zik got the first kill of the campaign, and then later he's like, gets shot down, and I'm like, oh, is he going to be able to bail out, and things like that. And you almost kind of have an attachment for your fighters there. But lots of chaos, but the chaos, you're still in control of your game. So think of it as a game of who moved my cheese. One criticism I might make is with these as fighter escorts. And it's just one thing. I'm actually glad they provide the necessary chaos that you want in a game like that, so you have to watch out. But the trick gets in when one gets up in this above trailing box. And when that happens, there's a 50% chance that he's going to just engage any of your fighters in any of these boxes. Because one of the options is the box with the least fighters, say that, or he could be here. Any of these boxes all around the map, he can go. The fighter escort can go there. He's got a bird's eye view of the entire battlefield, so he sees a plane. He can be anywhere on the field that he wants to be, which is fine. But the only problem is there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. So once a guy gets in here, yeah, the trick is because your move phase comes before the escort phase, so you've already committed to your place, and basically, when there's a guy here, the only thing you can do is pray for a low roll that doesn't send him to anywhere where your fighters are. Because once he gets in here with your biggest stack, there's a good chance a lot of them some might get shot down. More often than not, it just completely disrupts your attack. You're not going to be able to get your advantages like the swarm, and some of your guys are going to go home. And things like that. That's a minor criticism. Now it is time to talk about the Messerschmitt in the living room. And that is this thing here. This is the vector map. And it's basically a mini game that simulates the trip to this board, the formation board. And basically, you set all your fighters here and just go up the boxes. And you just roll on a chart. And whatever happens, happens. This is almost like a co-op right here, where you just draw the pandemic cards, and whatever it is, there's nothing you can do about it. Or very little you can do it. There are some choices, so it's not like there's no choices. But like as I was referring to it in the playthrough, this is just, the box of bad news. Because that's mostly what it is. You get stragglers, and you can go after them and get points. That's a good thing. But I've seen another YouTuber call this the game of life. If you ever played that little spin game, and it's like, do you go to college or not? And you basically have no say in the matter. It doesn't bother me quite as much. I know it's very controversial for a lot of people. They thought, wait, this just doesn't do anything for me. The problem is I can't unsee it. And so I'm always going to play it because now that you know about it, you can't come back to this game, and because what you have is basically you assemble your forces and they just magically warped to the formation, and they just begin their beautiful ballet in the sky with your perfectly laid plans, which is of course not the reality. So you got to have this adds a little more chaos to the thing, and you'll see I'm trying to game it a little bit. For instance, like you get 2 more operational points. It does give you benefits. You'll get 2 more technical points. You'll get a higher turn limit. And usually with these 2 operational points, I'll end up buying the auxiliaries, those Italian fighters, because I know I'm going to lose some through these. And I'll lose those guys rather than my named guys I'm trying to get skilled up and things like that. So kind of a love-hate, I would say, with this vector map. It's certainly a permanent part of the gameplay for me, just because it's kind of there taunting you. It says, haha, you're too much of a wimp to go through the vector map, aren't you? And so I end up just playing it. So that's a vector map. That's one of those criticisms which I'm not really sure where to put that. But there it is, just so you know. And now to the big criticism. And I will break this up into the past and the future. Because there's a game before this with this exact same system called Skies Above the Reich. And now I have not played it. I do not own it. I do have it ordered on the P500, which is a long way off, which brings me to my first point, is that when I look at Skies Above the Reich and everything it contains and compare it to Storm Above the Reich, the only thing that recommends Storm over Skies is availability. You can buy this right now. Unfortunately, that's the only thing that actually gives it the nod over to Skies, in my opinion. Because when you look at Skies, well, first of all, I guess we need to talk about the plane, the aircraft. In Skies Above the Reich, you're getting the Messerschmitt 109s, and you're getting the B-17 Flying Fortresses. Well, so what? These F-190s are actually better performers, and da-da-da-da-da. Yes, but the Messerschmitt 109 is iconic, as is the B-17 Flying Fortress. That's what most people coming into into World War II, and they think of World War II, and they think of aerial things. They think of Spitfires, they think of versus M109s and B-17 Flying Fortresses, which has all the movies. Memphis Belle. Isn't Hanover Street? What? That is a weird. I got to go back and look at that. That's one where it like turns into goes from a war movie to an Indiana Jones action film. I can't. I got to go see that again. Anyway, but the planes and even the auxiliary planes, because Skies Above the Reich has the also iconic Messerschmitt 262, Prince of Turbojets. The herald of the jet age. And so that's where you find that. In Storm Above the Reich, you get this damn thing, which is the Me-163, which was a rocket-propelled aircraft, which was as much a menace to the pilots and the ground crew that maintained them as it was to even more than to the enemy. And it's when you get down to it, it's a clown weapon, and you get that instead of the Me-262 there. I think that really is a kind of a selling point for Skies over when you get into things. Although this does have like these Italian, the MC-202s, and I've only read a little bit about them. They're actually a pretty competitive plane, and they look pretty cool, the pictures I've seen of them. And so that's the past. And now we need to talk about the future. Because on P500 right now, which I have ordered immediately, because I think it's actually has the potential to knock both Skies and Storm out of the park, and that is Skies Above Britain. And you can just look at it, and the two big selling points, if you're ever squeamish about, playing the Germans.
Are we the baddies?
This one, you're going to be playing the Allies. And moreover, this is entirely fighters versus bombers with these little enemy disruptors. But when you actually get in a dogfight, all it is one roll on a CRT table. And that's the whole extent of the dogfighting, which, it's fine for a game, what it's trying to do here. But in Skies Above Britain, dogfighting is going to move more into the center. You're still going to, interdict bombers and whatnot. But now we got a system, a more compelling system for dogfighting. And I was watching a little bit of the designer talk about what went into the dogfighting. And actually, I'll play a little bit of this clip here because I like it. So,
how does the game simulate the dogfight? In real life, and in Skies Above Britain, the first key to winning the fighter versus fighter combat is advantage. The advantage one fighter might have over another in real life depends on constantly changing variables of physics and geometry, involving things like the plane's relative speeds, differences in potential energy, and their relationship in 3D space. Some air combat board games try to model all those things directly. In Skies Above Britain, we don't, because whether a game models them in detail or reduces them to a die roll, eventually it all boils down to the same yes-no result. Either you have advantage or the bogey does. Eventually it all boils down to the same yes-no result. Boils down to the same yes-no result. Boils down to the same yes-no result.
See, I really like things like that. I like when a designer can just kind of plant a flag, as it were, and say in so many words, if you want a simulation, go buy a computer. Meanwhile, I'm going to make this board game. And the last thing I want to do is saddle the player with a bunch of mechanics that ultimately just come down to a binary choice. And can be just so much more simplified. So, with thinking about Storm Above the Reich and thinking about Skies Above the Reich, I just have a lot of anticipation for this game. I think it actually, in my spidey sense, tells me this is going to be a sleeper hit and kind of break out that whole series. Kind of like Atlantic Chase did, I think. So where does that leave Storm Above the Reich? Unfortunately, it kind of leaves it as kind of the neglected middle child. Which is unfortunate, because I did enjoy this game, and I do enjoy it. And in fact, I think I'm going to, since I have the game out, I think I'm going to go ahead and start into Season 2. Now, I did get a comment on this game. He said, well, first of all, it looks kind of brutal. It is. But also that, it doesn't look like too much fun. And I don't want to give that impression, though, because, like I said, I really enjoy playing it. And maybe it's just my presentation. I know that when I watch really exciting video games, or play exciting video games, it's a lot different when I'm actually watching someone on Twitch do it, or something like that. And I get bored very fast. And that may be the case with Storm Above the Reich. It just doesn't lend itself to a video, somebody watching it. And I think Atlantic Chase was a little more interesting to watch. But that may just be entirely my presentation. I just need to come up with something else, maybe a little more of a narrative style or something like that. But just strolling around here, starting to get winded. So I'm going to go ahead and close it out here. And those are my thoughts on Storm Above the Reich. And thanks for watching.